Welcome back, family. I am excited. We have another episode of the Wyrd Way coming at you, and this feels like something special coming in this episode. I've always loved on this show how I get to interview so many incredible people from so many various fields and ranges of skills and modalities and so many avenues of life. And there's something that feels specifically beautiful for me in this episode because there's people I come across and I'm like, there's deep resonance here. There's something I truly connect to and something that just enlivens my own soul because I see how they are in the way they operate in this world. And I'm like, I feel the resonance. And that's why I'm so excited for this episode to have Tegan Mel come join me. She's been a TEDx speaker. She's presented at Mind Body Spirit Festival. She's done so many incredible things, and she's also a magnetic mentor. So, Tegan, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dean. I'm so grateful to be here. I am very much looking forward to our conversation together today.
So, I like to dive in because I think we're both people who do like a bit of depth and exploring the great unknown and mystery of this universe. And so, let's begin with what is a magnetic mentor? Because for me, I'm like, people do have connotations of what even magnetism means. So I'd love if you could break that down and really relay what that means to be a magnetic mentor.
So, to become magnetic is to step into your truest essence. And you're probably wondering what that actually means. And it is to be fully you, to be embodiment of yourself. And this transcends into your business as well. And so when we can step into who we are and access energetics, manifestation, mindset, all of that, combine it all together and tap into our truest essence, then this is when we start to become more magnetic. And so as a magnetic mentor, I help people, especially in their businesses, tap into their essence. And so they can bring something out of nothing. Just super cool, especially with products. I truly believe that we all have a physical product that helps us become omnipresent, which means that we can be activated anywhere in the world. And you see, I used to have a product brand and I channeled it through. So, and when I did, it became more than a physical product. I'm actually wearing some of the jewelry now. It became more than a product. People would come to it and remember me from the energetic exchange. And so what I recognized is that it's never the item, it's never the product, it's you. And when you are in your deepest essence, regardless of what type of business you have or what interactions you have, you become memorable. And so as a magnetic mentor, I support people to become more of themselves. So they become more memorable, become more magnetic, become more of who they are so they can be on that mission in the world.
I got chills when you were saying that. There's a piece I've been tracking for a long while now, which has been how the spiritual journey and the entrepreneurial journey is so similar. It's the bringing down of spirit into matter. We're bringing down and through, and it feels like what you're doing is exactly that. And I can imagine, and I know that so many products out there isn't come from this. They come from the ego and the mind and the stories of like, I need to do this to create money, or I need this to survive. And there's this entrapment of doing something not from that soul essence place. So I'm really curious when you're working with people and you're seeing them create from this place, what do you notice shifts for them? What changes occur when they're actually creating from this channeled place?
So to start off with, when we look at the word inspiration, so I heard you say that. And a lot of entrepreneurs will say, I'm so inspired. I'm feeling inspired. And it's like, take inspired action, we say in like the manifestation world as well. And if we break down the word, because I love etymology and I love the meaning of words, inspire is in spirit. And so when we tap into in spirit, inspire, then we're leading with something beyond us. So which is beyond us, yet it is us at the same time. And you may or may not get that. And so what I notice is, rather than a force push energy that tends to happen when you're in the what you call the ego way of pushing, creating like, oh, I'm going to go and order some products off Amazon, or I'm going to create this product in my business, and what's the next product? And I get it because I've been there, being like, what's the next product to bring out into my shops? I had a couple of retail stores and I was like, oh, what brand should I bring in? However, when I tapped in spirit and I got inspiration and took inspired action, it flowed. And it flowed in all avenues throughout the business. And so this is where I inspire it, like help people connect to that inspiration. Like, where is it that's that connection thread that is truly you? Because this is where your magic lies. And what I find really fascinating is the shifts that can literally happen in an instant when you get out of your own way. I'll give you an example. I was running a session with someone the other day, and they were looking at how to design and package. And it was, oh, this was available, so I just did this and I put it all together. Whereas when they tuned into the energetic blueprint and frequency of what they're bringing out, which is also a part of their frequency, it was so different and so more beautiful and so more them, that it shifted the way they interacted with the product and shifted the way they perceived it, essentially, and valued it. Instantly the price increased as well of what they valued their product. And I can tell you now from my own experience, like when we value ourselves, others value as well.
I love where this conversation is going, because I've seen so many times when I've created from a place of what I believe or I think needs to happen from my mind, basically. There's a construct I'm operating within, which comes from the conditions and the programs and the beliefs I've had up until that point, which, stem from childhood and all culture and all of those things. And there's a limitation that occurs when we're creating from that place. It's like, I've seen other people do it like this, so I need to do it like this. Everyone else is doing that and they're getting this level of success, so I should do the same thing. There's a lot of should, and there's this box that I can find suffocates the soul. It's like I'm wanting to create my own way, but I'm afraid to go out and step out onto my own and do something else. And I've never seen that end successfully. And I'm wondering if you can speak into that. Have you witnessed that, of like that box people come up against and then the release of that into the possibilities?
Yeah, absolutely. It's shooting, right? It's shed the shooting. We've got to shed the shooting. It's time to release the attachment of the expectations of how things should look. And I'm talking to this on my TEDx. And what I find quite fascinating is that we can be inspired by others, and we say inspired by others and spirit by others. And yet at the same time, where are you also being inspired by yourself, and to come back into what is coming here? And this can create split energy. It can create kind of like opening lots of doors at once and trying to like spread through them. Yet when we've got like your own energy, and then if you're doing multiple things and it's coming from you, it's a different to just being split to all suggestions, and it feels different. And so I remember I funnel blocked myself. My first retail store, I had opened it. I've got so many great manifestation stories. When I opened my first retail store up in Noosa, up in Queensland in Australia, I'd been running the brand, this jewelry brand, for about, let me count backwards. I think it must have been about 5 years that I'd been running the brand, and I'd been making the jewelry all myself. And I was so used to running the brand myself. And I was like, I've got this, I can do this. I'm like, yep. I should be able to, right? I shouldn't. And I hired some team. And what I noticed was I started to what we call micromanage them. How are you creating that? I didn't really want to tell them all the ways to make the jewelry because I'd been my baby for so long. And I hired a mentor. I hired one of my first mentors, and she pointed something out that I hadn't seen. And this is what I love about mentors, right? It's like they see what you don't see, because it's like you're so like, I found that I was like, had my little blinkers on. I was like, this is the way I've always done it. This is the way I'm going to do it. Exactly what you were saying, right? The should box. This is the way I've done it. This is why others are doing it. And then she came along and she goes, have you considered this? And I recognized something. I recognized that I had funnel blocked myself. So I had customers, orders, everything coming in, like customers into the shop, online orders, all coming in. And I was micromanaging everything in here. If you can see it, probably if you're listening, I'm holding my hands up in a V like a funnel. And there was my team between my palms, and I was watching them. And so at that point, I decided to let them create. In that moment, I made a bold decision. I made this instantaneous move to surrender the control, and instantly things changed. Like, I kid you not, we were doing about 10K months in that shop, and within like 3 months, we'd got up to $50,000, like regular months. And the micro things that we think that we should be doing are stopping the quantum leap, because you can't get to a new way from an old way. So the boxes from my experience there was, I had my old beliefs, patterns, and I boxed myself. So once I let that go, so much more energy and so much more became available, Dean. It was wild. It was really noticing what is possible from this girl that had started a jewelry brand, hand wire wrapping crystals at local market stalls, opening a shop in Noosa and becoming known all over town for, if you're wearing this necklace, you must be from Noosa kind of comments. So it was a wild experience, because I started to recognize what's possible. That kind of answers your question.
That answers it so well. And this piece of surrender is the one I get. There's a part of me that gets angry when I hear people talk about surrender, because they make it sound like such a soft process of like, I just need to soften and surrender into the cosmic flow of the universe. And every time I've got to that point, it's actually taken the depth of pain and suffering and feeling constricted and blocked and going through so much to actually get to that point where I can surrender. And for me, it's been an active process of like consciously, intentionally engaging with that, of like, I need to stop this. I need to let that go. I need to say no to those old behaviors. And generally, for me to get to that point, I've had to go through pain, suffering, or problems, challenges that I couldn't solve, or that took me to rock bottom. And so I'm curious, in that point of that surrender, are you willing to speak into like what occurred for you internally up until that point to get you to that point of like, it's like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore?
Looking back to that exact point I was talking about earlier, no, I'm constantly going through the depths of surrender right now. And I say depths and depths of surrender. We can talk on that as well. And to specifically talk on that moment where I hired more team and allowed them to create the jewelry freely and run the stores, I had got to a point where I felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders, that I was doing everything. And the key word there is doing, because I was doing everything. Whereas when we're in flow, we're being, and we're being. We're being. All right, a human being. And in this experience, yet I was in force. I was in force energy. And I felt like I was pushed to an edge. And it was if you imagine a cliff face and I'm pushed to the edge, and you push to the edge, and you may recognize this feeling, this sensation that you're right on the edge, and you look over the edge and there's nothing there. And it's a drop, or what looks like a drop. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this. And you've got a choice. You've got a choice to turn around and go back the way you came, or you can take a step over the edge. And the lean into the flow and surrender doesn't really happen when you're stepping off an edge of a cliff. It's having so much faith and trust that you are so deeply held by the unseen world. And I took a go. I took a gamble. I had a go, and I let go. And it played out in ways that I hadn't even imagined. And so I recognize, like, over the last 12, 18 months, I've been practicing the art of letting go, the art of surrender. And the more I practice it, the faster it compounds and activates more things. And so it's like this deep test of, you want to go deeper? How much deepness can you go to show how high you can extend? It's playing in the laws of polarity. So I'm a big fan of energetics and recognizing that we live in a world of polarity, yet at the same time of oneness. It's a one to many, many to one. But as soon as we recognize that we are one, then we become many again, because we become the observer. And so recognizing that this journey, there is a depth in this journey that we must journey, if that makes sense. And it may not make sense. It's allowing the deepness to be without pushing it away, without pulling it in. It's being it, experiencing it. And fuck, I've been through some deaths. I've been through some absolute fucking deaths. I've had points where I remember early last year, after my second retail store closed, I remember a few months after that, I was at a point where I had chosen to pay things for myself, and me personally was just living how I was. I was like, okay, well, I now am, I'm running on what would look like empty for a little bit. I was running on empty. And I'm sharing this because the cure to shame is vulnerability. So I remember this day, there was a day that I was in my house and I looked at my bank account. And I recognized that right then and there, I had no money for food. And my ego was saying that you're very successful, Tegan. You're a great entrepreneur. What's going on? 2 months earlier, I had a retail shop and it was going great. And then suddenly I'm here. And this is the universe test. This is this depth that we get to experience. And there I was, looking in my cupboard in the kitchen, making a decision. And do you know what I did? Because I love playing games with the universe, because it's got a sense of humor, right? I said, I'm going to eat all of my food that's in there, because I know so deeply and with so much faith and trust that I'm always looked after. And so I did. That night, I had an order come through because the business was still online. This is the shop when I was. That night, $1,000 order came through. So what's the lesson there? Regardless of where you think you are not. Because you are only creating that with the thoughts of the expectations of where you should be, or you think you are, yet you are a mystical, magical being that creates your own reality. So when you deeply trust and have so much faith, and you can step over that edge of that cliff with absolute certainty and knowing that you are held and trusted with absolute depth and faith, you will always be looked after. You will always be supported, because if you weren't, you would not be here right now.
I am loving where this conversation is going. And for me, that essence of faith and trust, I think they're one of the most fundamental components of the spiritual journey, of the entrepreneurial journey. Like, we can go into so many others. And I know from my own experience of like where I've looked in my bank account, and it's been close to that, where I haven't had rent that week, and then I get paid the same day rent's due. And it's like, oh, can I surrender the egoic grasping? Because it's like, for me, I think so much of my own journey in that has been feeling unsafe, and being like, oh, it's unsafe to be who I am, and I need to do more or make more or do something outside of myself or force, because it's unsafe to be me. Because if I'm just me, I'm not provided for. It's not safe to be me. And I think for many people, this is the conditions we live within. And so the universe is like, hey, do you trust me? Are you willing to release that and surrender that idea that you're not safe? Because we are still here. We are still alive. We are still operating within this. Like that day that money came through, it's like the universe, you knew on some level, and the universe is like, of course, I've, I've got you. And when I consider that, it opens up the possibilities. It opens it. And I think we both like to play in this field of possibility. So when people are going through that fear, and from your own experience, how can they continue to like hold on to that faith and trust? Or how did you even been like knowing? Because it can trigger the nervous system. We can go into survival, and it's hard to create our reality from that place.
This is a great question. Regulated nervous system is so important. One of the biggest assets we have is our breath. And we always have it. And by regulating our nervous system through our breath and breathing into our nervous system, we are able to expand our capacity to receive. We are able to expand and hold a higher frequency. And when we are at a higher frequency, we become a frequency match for something else. And so we're essentially softening and trusting despite the chaos around us. And so I am even imagining that you are in a tornado, be the breath in the eye. So you could breathe in, taking a breath in for 4 and exhaling for 8. That's a really good. It's just like, a longer exhale allows your nervous system to soften. And just noticing where you are holding on. And so I last year, and look, over the last 18 months, I was running letting go challenges. Because what I was doing was asking myself the question, where am I holding on? So I started to run these public letting go challenges because I was doing it. So I'm like, this is fun. Let's bring everyone else into it. And I was running manifestation challenges too, which is super fun. And the letting go challenge was, where are you holding on to the old stuff, the old version of you? Because it's allowing in these extra pockets of fresh newness will help you shift the frequency that we're playing in. So it's asking, where am I holding in my internal world and my external world? Because somewhere in my external world will be reflected back into my inner world, and somewhere in my inner world will also be reflected back into the external world. It's both, right? So it might be like, oh, there's a, like, I remember one of the examples from one of my challenges. One of the girls was holding a box of letters from her previous partner, and they were living, guess where? Under her bed. I was like, so I wonder if you'd consider moving those and getting rid of them. Because essentially things hold energy, right? We hold an energy. And so by holding on to that, there's holding on to an attachment to something that has been. And yes, we live on different timelines. Yes, we are here in the present now. And if you're here right now in the present now, then by holding on to something that has happened, then essentially you're still holding that into the now. So by releasing it, Ho'oponopono is one of my favorites, and releasing it with absolute love, forgiveness, and grace. And asking, like doing a scan. I love taking my clients through scans around their physical body, through their home, through their office, through their businesses, and noticing what does the energy feel like? What feels old? What feels fresh? What feels aligned? And starting to shift these things. Starting to shift and let go and release this, because it's literally like getting a pile of cords and untangling them. Sometimes you got to cut them, sometimes you got to untangle them. It's unthreading the universe entanglement.
And I feel I want to add to that piece. Like for me, grief is such an powerful emotion to experience. And when we're talking of like the letting go, this is something that may be needed to experience as well. Like with the letters under the bed. Say if that person hasn't grieved, or my awareness is if someone's like, oh, I've got these old things now and I just need to go get rid of them. That can actually be a avoidance pattern as well if you're not feeling the underlying emotions that are present there. If you just go and get rid of everything so you don't have to look with it at it without feeling the underlying emotions, that will stay with you. It will stay in your body and on a somatic level. So it's like you can do these in the physical, yes, but as you do it, allow the emotion to move through you of like, oh, I am letting this go. If it's grief, anger, frustration, sadness, let it move so you can actually truly let go and not just trick through your mind into letting go.
That's right, because otherwise it'll pop up in other ways. And this is why it's so important to do these processes like a Ho'oponopono, which is like, and actually do it, not just sit there and be like, oh, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. It's actually feel it and go, I'm sorry, and recognize your part in it. And, like going through the process of it and feeling the depth of what is there and the appreciation for what it has gifted you. It is like the appreciation and recognition of where it's got you to now. And this is where we can step into grace.
I love this piece so deeply because you're bringing love into this process. And this is a difference I notice in a lot of personal development spaces where it's like, just leave it behind, cut it away, stop it. And it's like, there is a place where sometimes you do need to be in that more harsh masculine energy of cut. But I also find that that's overused and people are just cutting away parts of themselves, which creates fragmentation within the psyche and create separation from self. So you mentioned at times you do have to cut away certain aspects, and then other times you need to lovingly untangle them. And could you speak into the difference to those two elements of like bringing one through and knowing when it's also time to cut away?
When you're gonna love this because it's the same, it's essentially the same. It's the untanglement is, it's almost like a rewiring. And the cutting to me feels like a release of attachment to it. Because we can never truly cut away from anything, because we are everything. And so that's where it's a recognition of how this is also part of you, and loving it for what it has gifted you, and the rewiring, the untangling, the moving out the convoluted bits is what I was feeling. It's like things wrapped in together, and it's like, oh, that's wrapped into my life. And it's almost like, I'll give you an example. It's like, oh, I have okay, let's use the letters under the bed. If the letters weren't just sitting under the bed, they were kind of scattered around, and there might be like picture on the, like, there might be a picture of her previous partner like up on the wall and stuff with them, just like, oh yeah, we're still friends, there's pictures there, it's fine. Yet she's also calling in a new partner. Then what that's showing is convoluted messages. So it's like untangling that and then releasing that with love, and recognizing that there is space for someone new to step into. And when she can truly release and lovingly release that man, she will receive another man in. And because there's never anything missing. Like one of my amazing mentors, like DeMartini, talks about is like, there's never anything missing. Never anything missing. Yeah, it's a space that we create and allow in through that recognition of removing the entanglement.
This is something I see in business as well, and I'm sure you can relate, where people are still attached to the old identity, which is creating business in a certain way. It's like I've created offerings in a certain way, and now I'm wanting to like let go of them and create in a new way, but I'm not willing to release the old yet. And I know I've gone through experiences like this where I'm like, okay, I've declared that now my pricing has increased, and then the universe will test me, and it's like all these people that I thought were like would work with me, they're like, oh, I can't go for the new price point. And it's like, oh, now I'm scared because what if money doesn't come in, and all of this starts happening. But every time I've been willing to hold that and hold that new price point, the universe has met me there. It at times has tested me. My bank account has dropped to almost zero, but then it's that trust, that faith is like, oh, now there's space to allow that new energy to come in. And it's this constant releasing of the older way of being that isn't serving. It's like, hey, you want this? Okay. It's for me, it's the sacrifice. It's like, what am I willing to put on the altar to achieve or create this? And it's like, on an energetic level, it's like, yeah, something needs to die to allow the birth of something new, the fertilizer.
Absolutely. It's the law of seasons, right? It's like something must die in order to be rebirthed. We go through the winter to get to spring. And I love what you just said, because it's such a common thing in business. It's like, oh, I'm here and this is what I'm claiming. Yet the universe comes knocking and it's like, are you sure you want that? How sure? Are you really sure? And it will come closer and closer to see how certain you are and how committed you are to that new version of you, that new up level, that new expanded version of you. Because that reality, it's almost like they're like, hi, come back, it's safe here. And the ego is there to look after you. It's a very valuable piece of ourselves. It's very important, because otherwise we'd be knocking ourselves out all the time or whatever. Then it's the gift is recognizing that we also can create our own reality, and we can change it and shift it, and be in the recognition that when we are pushed, we're pushed for a reason. And I love metaphors. And, you know, the very common metaphor of the butterfly and the caterpillar, right? It's like the caterpillar must turn to mush before it turns into a butterfly. And that's showing the example of such deep faith that there is something beyond its comprehension, and it must completely die in order to be born. And by holding on to like the old funnels or the old programs or the old products, that's like, yeah, this is me, and I'll just do this as well on the side. It's like you can't create something new from something old. Like you can be inspired by it in spirit, yet the old energy isn't going to transcend you into this bit. And this is where I look at that becoming that memorable version of yourself is like, okay, who are you in your essence now? Because the version of you we're always going to have that true essence that we are constantly evolving and stepping into this next level, next layer. So who are you right now that you're bringing into this world, and what is it that's bringing forth? Because a version of you that layers, it's like, are you stepping backwards into what feels safe, or are you ready to journey forward? Are you journeying into the now? Are you ready to step into the unknown, which is actually the known, or philosophical? I love.
These are my favorite kinds of conversations, and I feel like to put a framework on that, I'm a big fan of alchemy. It's the alchemical framework of solvate coagula, like which means in Latin to first dissolve and then coagulate. So on a mental level, we have unconscious beliefs that keep us the box we were talking about.
Yeah.
And so when we claim that next level of like, oh, I want that next level of income, I want to create in a new way to achieve that, because we're actually not there yet. Otherwise, we'd already have that. And this is the thing, right? We can call that in, but the universe is like, well, here's all the things that are stopping you from creating that. Here's their beliefs, here's the patterns, their behaviors. Have a look at this so you can embody that version of you, and then it will remove them. On a like frequency level, it's removing of the lower vibration so you can embody the higher vibration. And this is why we're tested. This is the tests that come along and be like, hey, you need to step through, you need to change so you can become more.
Yes. Oh, and by embodying and becoming more, it's going to feel different. It's going to feel that like growing pains, because you're stepping into somewhere you've not been before. And it's like, oh, how can we enjoy the discomfort of something new? And I always love playing games with the universe and playing tests and going, oh, what would happen if I did this? Or what would happen if I did that? And things like, oh, well, if I threw out these things, or if I went through this process, or if I listened to this is one I've been playing with lately, is following my goosebumps, because I'm quite energetic and I'll feel things. So I might go for a drive and see where the goosebumps take me. Like, show me some synchronicities, universe. Let's see what happens. And following the threads and saying yes and just following the alignment. And it is profound. It is so profound. I remember I did that one time, and I went and sat in a cafe, and someone sitting behind me interviewed me on their podcast. Start talking, or I've done it another time and I bumped into a whole group of people I knew, and then a whole bunch of synchronicities happened from that. Or, you know, people recognize me. I had another time that I was sitting somewhere and someone comes up to me and goes, I like what you're wearing, start chatting, synchronicities. You know, I invited to my event that I was running. It's like, can you trust that there is a bigger thing playing out than what you consciously can see, hear, feel, smell, all of that in this 3D essence? We have access to so much more, and we start to tap into and play with it. it becomes more expansive. We can access more, and it's like switching on a light, and it gets to be really interesting, and also it can feel really fucked, like, to be real.
Yeah, it can feel very, very fucked at times.
You said I could swear, so I am.
Of course, of course. We're holding the extremes. If we're going into the depths of joy, like let's bring some swearing as well. Um, and this is like the point for me. You've talked about the duality of like, hey, if we want the like fullness of our life, we're probably going to have the darkness. And you mentioned the tornado before, of like imagining yourself in the tornado. And this just feels relevant. I remember when I was in my own dark night of the soul, I had no idea about this analogy. I literally drew a tornado. I'm a bit of a drawer with a diamond emerging from the middle of it. And this was before I was in this world for as like I am now. And I was like, okay, that was that experience. And to feel even that synchronicity moving, like when we're willing to be with the turmoil and go through it all, something else emerges, some level of greatness and something new. So from there, I'd just love to like ask one final question before we begin to wrap up, because we've talked about this theme of like death and rebirth and that occurring. So if someone was like looking to claim that next level for themselves or step into that and be like, I'm ready for the next timeline, I'm ready to embody my own greatness, what advice or what would you share with them to support them in that?
Move from your head into your heart. It's easier said than done. The way I've done it is to be who I am already with such certainty, to know that it's already done. There is no doubt. And I'm going to give you an example of moving house, because I manifest houses like so simply. I'll pack up boxes even before I've got somewhere to move to. I'll pack boxes because I know that's already done. I feel it in my body. I can feel it. I can see it. I can like start to plan out the place. It's not coming from here. It's like, I know it's done. You know, when you say, oh yeah, I've done it. It's done. It's like, you feel that it's done. And then in the moment of knowing that it's done, you let it go. And notice when the neediness comes back up, because it will, because we're human. It's like, oh, it hasn't happened yet. Breathe, come back, regulate your nervous system. Trust. Who am I as someone who already has received this? Come back into that feeling of who you are and continue to walk. And then when that feeling comes up again, do it again, regulate the nervous system. Who am I in that already? It's already done. And can I feel myself there now? And it's this little dance of really continuing to surrender, to deeply trust that we are held by the universe, by our guides, by our higher self, by this unseen world, that if it doesn't play out exactly how you've imagined it, it'll happen in a way that will be for your highest good, and it'll be more magical than you can even imagine. So it's that invitation to let go of the steering wheel and trust that the car is driving, and really trust. When I was speaking at Mind Body Spirit Festival, I'd always use this analogy, because I'd get a room full of people who are quite new to manifestation, and I'd tell them that, I'd invite them to imagine this. So imagine that you're sitting in an Uber and you hop in. I've got two analogies. Like, you hop into the Uber and you say, I am going to go to the beach. And the Uber driver's like, cool, I'll take you to the beach. fucking know what beach you're going to go to. Tell them exactly which beach you're going to. I'm like, I'm going to Burleigh Beach. And so you get them really specific so you know they know where to take you. And as you're sitting there in the Uber, are you sitting there and enjoying the ride, or are you taking the wheel and driving it for the driver? Like, you're literally going to sit there and enjoy it. Maybe have a conversation with the driver, enjoy the view. This is why you took an Uber. So ask yourself, are you attempting to drive the Uber for the Uber driver? Or can you trust that they'll get you there now that you've given them a clear direction of where you're going? The other one, if you didn't get it, is if you ordered a package online, do you keep calling up and asking them if they've sent your parcel yet? Or do you trust that they've posted? I have a giggle because we can get so wrapped up in trying to control the outcome of things, even though we say we're trusting. Yet when we can like go, okay, I do trust that my parcel's coming. Yes, I trust the Uber driver. Yes, I trust myself. Take a breath. And you'll be surprised at the magic that transpires in your world.
They have been one of my most favorite analogies I've heard in terms of this. They've put words to everything I know and how I explain it just in a very tangible way. I just tell people, release the energy, let it go, the universe will take care of it. And it's like, yes, and this lands it. So Tegan, thank you for that mic drop.
Thank you. Thank you.
So as we're wrapping up here, is there anything left alive for you to share?
Well, I'm running events. So I don't know when you're popping this up. I'll be having an event in July. And if you want to connect with me, I would love to connect with you. So you can find me on Instagram at Tegan Mel. Dean, you'll pop all this in the show notes, right?
Yeah, all this information will be in the show notes below.
Yeah, you can connect with me on my website, teganmel.com. Look up my TEDx talk if you want to see me talk about bold moves and a journey which I didn't actually talk about on our podcast. So it's something that really is powerful and has brought people to tears. So I invite you to watch that. This is a really powerful story about how to fully, deeply trust that bold move forward.
Beautiful. For all those that are listening who wish to check out Tegan's stuff, please do. I've loved this conversation. I've got so much out of it, Tegan. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and I really recommend for everyone to check out her website, to check out her work, give her a follow, and share this episode too. Let us know what really landed for you, what inspired, what brought spirit into you from this episode. I'd love to hear, and I know Tegan would as well. Thank you all for joining us here today on The Wyrd Way. Tegan, thank you.
Thank you.